innovation isn't just the ideation, it's the practice. So it's like, how do we help people build practices and build capacity as innovators? Because it's kind of what we all want to do in a way. It's like we want to add value to each other.
Helping you create loyal customers and loyal employees, all through the power of simplicity. This is the Simple Brand Podcast, now heard around the world, including Newport Richey, Florida. I'm your host, Matt Lyles, and this week I'm talking with Jennifer Kinney. Jennifer's a master of innovation practices. She's held senior roles helping to drive innovation for companies like Accenture, Booz Allen, Gartner, Wells Fargo Bank, Cisco, and Stanford Research Institute. But today, she works with teams and organizations to help them fuel their innovation, their performance, and their revenue. And Jennifer's the author of the best-selling book, The Innovation Mindset, a proven method to fuel performance and results. Look, most everyone on your team has this innate drive to make great things. And you want them to make great things. And you want them to be innovative. The problem is, they likely don't feel innovative. They may not even believe that they're innovative. And unfortunately, bringing them all together every so often in a conference room to brainstorm ideas is not going to help them to be more innovative. It takes more than that. It takes putting the right mindsets and the right practices in place to help them grow their innovative muscles. So then, they're always focusing on and bringing new ideas to the table. And that's when true innovation happens. Jennifer and I discuss the barriers that hold teams back from being innovative, and we discuss her 6-step practice model to help teams create their innovation ecosystem to ensure that they're confidently and consistently bringing new ideas to the table. So here it is. Here's my interview with Jennifer Kinney. Hi, Jennifer. Welcome to the Simple Brand Podcast.
Matt, hi. It's an absolute delight to be here. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. We're talking about one of my favorite subjects, and I think it's one of yours too, is all around innovation.
Yes, absolutely. One of my favorite subjects, and also some of my favorite people who work in that space.
Well, so I want to talk about that because, we think of the people who work in that space and we hear the term innovation. A lot of people have a different take on how to define it. So first off, I'd like to know from you, how do you define innovation?
Yeah, fantastic starter question. Thank you. So most people think about innovation as the ideation process. So coming up with the big ideas. And what happens if you type, what is innovation into Google, you get lots and lots of light bulbs. So we've been brainwashed to a certain extent to think about it as light bulbs and ideas. Thomas Edison did us a huge favor with the light bulb, but not with a huge favor as our definition of innovation. So innovation to me is a human practice, and it is a practice that is very customer-centered, which is why perfect alignment with being here with you this morning, and also very much something that we can build over time as a capacity for ourselves. We don't have to be designated innovators sitting in an ivory tower. We can innovate as human beings because that's what human beings are really fantastic at. We can innovate through learned practices. And that has been the focus of my work for 30 years.
Oh, wow. Well, and that touches on a couple of different things that I guess I want to unpack for a moment. One, the fact that it's not just saying, okay, we have a problem to solve. Everybody come into the conference room and let's ideate around this and come up with the solution. Like being able to just flip the switch and turn it on and say, let's come up with our ideas on how to solve a problem. And then the other thing that you talked about is that it's more of a practice. It sounds like it's an ongoing thing that we have. Maybe it's kind of like a habit that we build.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I talk to people about it, I ask them, who plays a musical instrument? Who plays a sport? Who understands the idea that practice is something that you do every day, that you pay attention to, that you learn, that you build on all over time, and something that you embody. It's not necessarily something that just lives in your head. So the ideation is the thing that lives in your head, but now we actually have to put it into practice through ourselves into the broader community, because successful innovation is actually the adoption of new practices in communities. That's how stuff happens, right? That's how things get to market. That's how people adopt things. I mean, if you take the most obvious innovation of our time, which is the iPhone, that's only as successful as it is because we all use it, because it is in practice in our community, and it's added to and enhanced the lives of very many people. And so as an innovator, it's not can you come up with a genius idea, it's can people adopt and build new practice around what you're bringing to the table.
And is it something that is going to be useful for somebody? A lot of people will come up with what they think is a great idea. Here's my cool innovation, but it doesn't solve a problem. It doesn't really help anybody.
Yeah, exactly. If it doesn't make people's lives better, then it's not going to get adopted. And Gil Pratt, who's the chief scientist for Toyota Motor Corporation, did a review for my book. Thank you, Gil. Shout out to him. And he said, I strongly recommend the innovation mindset to anyone who wants to learn how to do the more challenging part of innovation, which is the transformation by human teams of inventions into innovations. So Gil's very clear that the innovation is the adoption in the community. Otherwise, it's not bringing value. And, Toyota is very focused on value and customer focused.
Wow. Yeah, so you've got inventions all day, like you can create new things all day, but it's the innovation that helps ensure that it's going to be useful, that it's going to be adopted by others.
Exactly.
You mentioned innovators, and when we think of innovators, we think of the type of people that are either in the ivory tower or in the cool warehouse office offsite somewhere else. And so a lot of times, some teams or some people will seem to be naturally more innovative than others. And then some people may say, well, that's just not me. I'm not innovative, or my team is not innovative. What do you say to people like that?
I say to them that they've forgotten what they were like when they were two, because we all come to the table with a capacity to be able to create and innovate. And some obviously have more than others, the same way we all do have less or more than others. But we definitely have the capacity. And the deal is, can you set yourself up with tools and frameworks and learning that help you build capacity over time? And I mean, I've done this work with everything from bank tellers to people with multiple PhDs, and they've all increased their innovation capacity and, bluntly, their joy of work, which to me is super important. And they've benefited from it. So to me, it's like we all have it. It's what do we choose to focus on, and how do we choose to build it and grow it over time?
Gotcha. Well, so what are some of the barriers that prevent either teams or individuals from increasing their innovation capacity?
Fear. I think the biggest one is we're all scared of failing, but we're failing by not trying. And we're also scared of the organizational hierarchy and the structures that we work in. And I think it's fair to say that this next generation, they're not paying that much attention to the organizational hierarchies as maybe my generation did, right? And
I've heard that.
Yes, good, which is, I think, is wonderful. Frankly, I'm delighted for them and proud of them. I have a daughter. And so I think that it is our ability to be able to move beyond that. One of the things I do when I start working sessions with people is I start off by asking them, I say, okay, who got pissed off at work today? And people will put up their hands. And I said, okay, who got very pissed off at work today? Keep your both hands up. They both hands up. I said, okay, now put your hands down and then tell me who came into work today to piss everyone else off. And everyone will do exactly what you're doing. They laugh. And I go, okay, so it's not us. It's the way work is designed. And if we come into work every single day and we aren't able to amplify each other's fabulousness, then there's something wrong with the way work is designed. There's nothing wrong with us. So my take on it is, if we can think differently about how we work and how we do work and what is the purpose of work, mean, the purpose of work is really to bring our fabulousness to the rest of the world, right? And be that in the form of products, or podcasts, or books, or whatever it is. And so for me, the big switch for people is to stop being afraid of the structures that we have inherited and begin to think how we change those to allow ourselves to be able to be more innovative and to bring more of ourselves and our unique abilities and our joy to work.
Okay, so when I hear it that way, and I'm going back to thinking about fear, people
Mm-hmm.
being afraid to innovate, I think some of the fear is in their own control, in the individual's control. Here are the things that you can do to get over this. Here are the things that you can do to become more courageous to be able to innovate.
Yep.
At the same time, I do think that there's another piece because a lot of times there's a reason behind that fear. If someone is afraid to fail, if someone is afraid because of the organizational structure, a lot of that is in the leadership's control. So
Yes.
is there anything that leaders can do to help remove the things that cause the fear?
Yes. Super question, Matt. Thank you. So one of the biggest things is when I've worked in corporate roles and done C-level stuff and whatever inside corporations intentionally. And so my biggest deal is I'm here to make myself redundant. Now that seems insane if you're working your way up the corporate.
Of course.
But the deal is, if your people are as fabulous as you think they are, and they're able to do your job and your work, and you're grooming them to do that,
Yeah.
then you're making yourself redundant in your current role. And
Okay.
you are moving yourself on to do more customer-focused work, more innovative work, more market-focused work, more innovation, right? And so for me, it's always been, can you get rid of your fear of quote unquote losing your job and look at where actually you want to go in terms of your growth, your development, your mastery. And I talk about mastery quite a bit in the book, but like what floats your boat, what excites you, what do you want to bring of you to the world? And to me, if you're not constantly asking that question, you're always just afraid of losing what you currently have, as opposed to going, I would love my people to take my job because I can see 3-4 levels ahead of me of what it is I want to do. And so for me, it's stop being afraid of losing the job you have. Go make yourself redundant and then go look at what's next.
To me, that sounds like it takes some control. It takes some part of the solution of the fear within that leader. But I'm curious, are there things that leaders can do within their organization systems and processes and the way things are run to help remove some of the fear from their people?
Yeah, there absolutely is. So one of the things that we help people do is we help them design valuable offers that they want to make either cross-functionally or up the hierarchy. And very few leaders are actually used to receiving things, receiving value, receiving offers from the people below them. They're used to telling everyone what to do. Well, if one person is telling everyone what to do, then 100 people are only as smart as the person who's telling everyone what to do.
Yeah.
Right?
That kind of places a limit or a ceiling on it, right?
Exactly. And if you're humble enough as a leader to go, I'm smart, but I'm not as smart as 100 people, working to solve something or working to bring something new to market. And so for me, the big opportunity for leaders is to be humble enough to cultivate and receive offers from the people who work for them and to be able to co-invent those with their people. So they have a lot more context in the organization. They have a lot more understanding of what the OKRs or the KPIs or the goals of the organization might be. And so they're bringing that context, and they're bringing also the political context of who the other players on the leadership team are. And they bring that to the design of the work that their people are doing. But being in a position where you have an open door policy and people are coming in and offering to do cool things that they want to do, that they know will move the organization forward, that's very threatening for some leaders. But for the powerful, super agile, innovative leaders, they invite that, they cultivate that. And we work with leaders to help them do that and to help their people do the same thing. So we get this feedback loop and these cycles working within an organization where the intelligence and the innovative capacity build and the innovation bubbles up, because it can't just come from one giant head at the top.
Right, right. And I have to think that even still, being in that leadership position, a leader is going to have a bit more visibility to understand if an idea will work, what barriers that idea may face beyond just their own individual team, and what may need to be tweaked in order to help overcome those barriers. So it kind of lends itself to the leader being able to take that idea or work with that person to kind of coach and guide them to make sure that that idea is going to work.
Exactly, to work with that person to coach and guide them. Because if all they're doing is they're taking the idea, what they're doing is they're leaving the person who started off with the process and came with the offer and have thought it beyond just being an idea, thought about how they wanted to implement it, who they wanted to influence, how they wanted to engage people, and they'd done all of that work. And there's a lot of passion behind that. And so if we're not cultivating that as leaders, then all we're doing is we're just extracting from people. And right now, the workplace is hugely extractive, and people are leaving because they're not finding joy, they're not finding engagement, they're not finding purpose, and, and they're not getting paid enough. Why would you stay? And people are shopping around to try and find somewhere where they're seen, heard, and valued. And the organizations that can do that and enable people to be innovative at the same time are the ones who have been and will continue to be more successful.
Well, that's it. Where people are seen, heard, and valued, and where their ideas are valued as well.
Yeah. Well, and not just the ideas, but like their passion behind putting those ideas into reality and making them happen. Right? Because we started off by saying innovation isn't just the ideation, it's the practice. So it's like, how do we help people build practices and build capacity as innovators? Because it's kind of what we all want to do in a way. It's like we want to add value to each other.
Yes, absolutely. And this is something that I've been talking about with a few others, is a lot of times the way that some companies and some organizations are built, they reward employees based on ideas that come to fruition. And so you may have a lot of different ideas, but only like the top ones or the ones that work get rewarded. And I think that goes back into driving that fear that we talked about earlier, because why would I want to work on an idea or bring forth an idea if I wasn't super certain that it was going to work and I wasn't going to be rewarded for it? On the other hand, there are some companies that reward their employees for what you refer to as the practice, being in the practice of just generating the ideas, whether they're going to work or not.
Yeah, we do a lot of work with people on fail fast. How can we learn what's not going to work quickly? Because learning what's not going to work is part of learning what is going to work.
You mentioned a word a moment ago that I want to dive into, because you talk about this quite a bit, and I haven't really thought about this or heard this as it relates to innovation, is co-invention. Co-inventing with others. Talk to me about the value of co-inventing.
Oh, thank you. All right. So co-inventing is kind of at the heart of what I do. If people can't bring their respective intelligence to the table and do what seems almost like improv, I put something out there, we reflect back on it, we build on it, and we do this dance, we do this game. We're not making each other right or wrong. We're not shooting each other down. We're actually respecting and appreciating and acknowledging each other's mastery and building on top of it. So since we operate in an expert model versus a mastery model, so the expert model says, I know more than you do. I have more information than you do. I have more degrees than you do. I am smarter than you are. So therefore you must be wrong, stupid, ignorant, whatever it is. The mastery model says, I am pursuing what I love in an area that I admire and floats my boat and gives me purpose. I acknowledge that you were doing the same thing. Now, how do we bring those two things together and weave them together in a way that creates 2x or 3x the value that we could possibly do independently. So that co-invention, which is what I'm proposing leaders need to learn how to do with their people, is how do I take my mastery as an adult who's dedicated a lot of their life to a particular area of practice? How do I take yours and how do we bring them together into this dance of creation and innovation? And without that, what we're doing is we're just judging each other. And we all know that doesn't really work very well. So it is that co-invention. And how do you train yourself to get out of your right, wrong, problem-solving brain and into your innovation brain, which is, why is the person saying what they're saying? What's the perspective they're bringing to the table? What interpretations do they have? Why do they have those interpretations? What are they masterful at that I am not, that I want to understand more of?
Right.
How do I play that game? Yeah. And that's where a lot of the joy of work comes, right? I mean, what you and I are doing right now, this dance of this conversation, if we were able to do that all day at work with other people, we would go home incredibly satisfied and feeling valued, right?
And energized too. Like I would come home feeling energized. Like, wow, that was so great. Instead of coming home feeling just depleted and dejected.
Exactly, because it's not extractive. It's very much you and I going, oh, this is the way Matt sees the world. How cool is that? Okay, let's go play. And that's why I say go back to what it was like to being a 2-year-old, because 2-year-olds know how to do this. They know how to play.
They do know how to do that, but I have to think, and to me, like this goes back to fear again. When you're participating in that dance or the give and take or the back and forth with somebody else, I think that it would have to take a lot of trust in order to do that. Vulnerability and trust and even psychological safety. So how can you help your people build that level of trust to be able to co-invent with each other?
Yes. Okay. So we also spend a lot of time helping people learn how to build trust in a very pragmatic way. One of the ways that you can build trust with people is if I'm a leader and I have someone who comes into my office and says, as someone said to me, I don't want to take your job, boss. And I was like, please come into my office. I want you to take this job that I'm currently doing. But I want to propose that we do X, Y, Z. And so this person was coming in and offering to do something and they were scared. And so for me, what it was about in terms of trust, it was like, I want to be your internal customer for what it is you're offering to do. And I want to co-invent with you as to how we make this successful and how I ensure that you are not going to fail and how I ensure that you are going to be successful and deliver the results that you're looking for that are also in alignment with my goals. So it is very much that process of how do you cultivate people's capacity to make offers to you? How do you position yourself as someone who's flying cloud cover for them, who's co-inventing with them, who's their internal customer, and who's committed to being delighted with what they deliver? Because a lot of times internal customers will go, it wasn't what I was looking for. And what we work with people to do is go, I'm committed to being delighted. So I'm going to do whatever it takes to make sure that you're successful in this. And we're going to have the tough conversations if we need to. If you're going off the rails, I'm going to bring you back and we're going to deliver great value. And most people want to do that and they want to learn in that environment because now they have context and now they've got a real live customer that they can talk to internally and externally. And it creates an environment where people can be more trusting and more vulnerable because they know someone's flying cloud cover for them.
I think the key to that, at least to me, is having that mindset of thinking with somebody else, I'm here to help ensure they're successful.
Exactly.
Kind of having a servant mindset.
Yes. If you're a leader and you don't see yourself as being there to ensure that your people are successful, I don't know what you're doing because you're only going to be as good as you can help your people be. You can't do it all yourself. I mean, obviously you're creating vision with them. Obviously you're putting together a strategy with them. But in the end of the day, they're the ones who are executing on everything for you.
Right. And then your success would simply be a byproduct of their success. If they're successful, you're successful.
Exactly. And if they understand that and they see you putting that into action, and they see themselves having opportunities to innovate, and they understand their role in the organization and the value that they bring, that's where you will continue to build that trust and build even greater loyalty and credibility and engagement.
And I have to think that if you build that trust with one individual and then other individuals see it and you're going to build trust with them, the more trust you build, the more that your people are going to put that innovation practice into practice.
Exactly. And that's what we're looking to do. Yeah.
Well, and you've got a 6-step practice model for individuals to better innovate. Can you walk through your model here?
Yes, absolutely. The step number one in the model, Matt, is really doing some of what we've been talking about just now, which is how do we really begin to observe things differently and understand things differently. So we started people off with innovation isn't just ideation, it is a practice. So we move them to that understanding. And then we help them see the value of making offers, the value that, how do they bring forth and drive value in the organization? I'm actually launching a program in September called Get Promoted, because what I've seen over the years is people who are innovative get promoted. And people don't know how to surface their own innovation in a way that enables them to be able to get promoted. So I'm going, well, wait, everyone I've ever worked with and coached has gotten promoted. Why wouldn't I help a lot of people learn how to be able to do that? So you distinguish, and then you begin to start seeing things differently. So we're helping people see things differently and see how they can navigate the hierarchy and see that it isn't something they need to be afraid of, and see how they can ask for what they need in terms of support for what it is they want to make happen. So that's the observe piece. And then I have practice courage, which is really, really important, because without the courage of making the first move, you're always going to be stuck. So I'm constantly saying to people, okay, so make it smaller so you feel safe with it. How do we scale something so that people can actually make the first move? So helping people through that process. And then the co-invention that you rightfully picked up and said, this is kind of at the core of what it is that I do. How do you learn how to do that dance in a way that isn't defensive and in a way that is co-creative and co-inventive? How do you recognize the high that gives you, the fun, the joy, the delight that brings you?
Yeah.
And then once you start doing that, you start creating knowledge. You start bringing something back to the organization that is really valuable for the people around you, because you're seeing things differently. You're co-inventing with other human beings. And now you're creating new levels of understanding and capacity and interpretation inside the organization. And that feeds the innovation capacity. And then as you do that, you're building this base of innovation as a practice, and also innovation as results of new services, new products coming to market.
I've heard you talk about this before as well, is that knowledge is not necessarily just information. There's a lot more that goes into it.
Yeah. Actually, I was doing a hike at the weekend with a bunch of other people, and one person was all about the information. And I was like, I can learn that on Google. I'm really not interested in talking to you about information. I didn't say this to him. I just went and walked on my own.
Of course.
Mark, my friend who I was there with, and I said, look, information is boring. It's there. I can find it. Of course I can find it, but it's only interesting if I contextualize it in knowledge. If it's relevant, if it ignites something, if it helps create purpose, if it solves a problem, it's only valuable in context. For me, the big thing is, we've more information than we can handle. Everyone's inbox is exploding and overwhelmed. I have the entire internet accessible to me, lucky us. And knowledge is really, how is it relevant for me? How does it serve me? How does it help me? How does it further what it is I'm trying to accomplish? How does it support my mastery? And how do I bring it in a curated, valuable way to people so that it serves them? So yeah, big difference.
Yeah. And it's like helping take the information and then connect the dots back to our organization, our team, or what we're trying to solve.
Yeah, which is exactly part of what you're doing. I mean, that's why people listen to you, is because you are providing knowledge for them, not just information. The information they can get on the web, the knowledge they come to you because you are accessing it, you're curating it, you are personalizing it, you are asking great questions. That's knowledge.
That's my goal. Thank you. So one of the things that you've been working on lately, and you have your new book coming out around this, is around innovation in gender balance and how gender balance plays a role in innovation. Can you talk to me about that?
Yeah, the data is overwhelming. And this is where we actually do come to the information. The data is actually mind-blowing in terms of the results that gender balanced teams produce. Now, I'm not saying that we should have, 50% women and 50% men, just a balance where different perspectives and different voices can be heard. What we've seen over time is that the results, so we're getting stuff like innovation, 76% more likely to get innovative ideas to market, gender balanced teams, right? Gender balanced teams in decision making, better decision, 78% of the time, and twice as quickly. And the list goes on and on. Risk reduction, customer experience, employee engagement, operational excellence, strategy. We're sitting on a gold mine and we haven't really figured out how to leverage it. So a lot of what I did, I wrote the book out of indignation because I'm like, we're sitting on a huge opportunity, people. We have all these problems. We have this opportunity to solve them. And so when I started looking at the data, I was blown away. And I started looking at how do women lead differently? And to come back to your comment about trust, how do we build trust based on an understanding of a full spectrum of leadership and not just pigeonholing ourselves, all of us, into how men in the 50s and 60s led, right? Because that is what leadership is today. But how do we think about leadership differently as a full spectrum of capacity where we can fit anywhere we want? But the ends of those spectrums are how an archetypal man would lead and how an archetypal woman would lead. And then we get to play in the middle. So I started putting that together and I was absolutely flabbergasted as I started doing the research and doing interviews. I interviewed lots of people, lots of women particularly, and lots of men. And I saw that there was lack of understanding as to the full spectrum of leadership and how people lead differently. And then also lack of understanding as to how to bring that together and how to leverage it. And I thought, still think, believe, and I've put this into practice, is if we can capitalize on that, we can actually impact our innovation capacity for the whole company. It's exciting stuff and it's adjacent to what I was doing. So it's hugely relevant.
Oh, yeah. Well, and to me, I think that also ties back to one of the main things we were talking about earlier is around fear. A lot of times you may have a leader that wants to make sure that they surround themselves with people that are just like them, having a fear of any outsider perspectives or perspectives from anyone who might be different from them. So this helps break down that fear and saying you need to have diversity of perspective in order to have better innovation.
Yeah. And leadership and interpretation and ways of engaging and ways of understanding what's important. I mean, as I started unpacking it, I was just amazed at how many different avenues we engage on differently and how if we can bring those things to the table, we can build the trust, break down the fear, amplify the innovation, which is what we're trying to do. Yeah.
Excellent. Love that. Well, I'm look forward to seeing that book when it's out.
Yeah, it's out already. It was out in February. I will launch it officially in October.
The official launch. That's it. Well, Jennifer, last question for you. If you were to create a 5-song playlist for the innovation mindset, what songs would you include?
This is an interesting question. I was like, this guy thinks differently. Look at that. So I would include a Sinead O'Connor song, of course, because I'm Irish.
Of course.
And I love this particular one called Black Boys on Mopeds, but it's particularly relevant in terms of inclusivity and understanding people's different perspectives. And she had a mixed race child, as do I, and she was basically saying, if I don't listen to and include people who are different than me, then where does it stop? How do we ever bring ourselves back from that edge? So I loved that one. The other one, and that's very kind of resolute, it's very Sinead O'Connor, who was very much, speaking truth to power and standing up for people who she believed had been wronged. So,
of course.
Yeah, I found that very powerful. And then the other one is one from the Bangles, which is The Hazy Shade of Winter. And it's joyful. It's just a joyful song. It was originally done by Paul Simon, but the Bangles did a
That's
beautiful
right.
one. And it's got a kind of California vibe about it. It's very, very joyful. I love that
Oh, yeah.
one.
That was from the Less Than Zero soundtrack.
Yes. Yes. So look at it's, and then I'm just going to pick one other one rather than go through the whole lot of it. But I think there's a really fun one, which is from the Lego movie, Everything is Awesome. And some of the reason why I'm picking these joyful songs is I think that's what we're doing when we're expressing innovation. Yes, we're doing deep research. Yes, we're solving big problems. Yes, we're doing mathematics and machine learning and artificial intelligence and all of those things. But in reality, we're bringing joy to the table because it's an expression of us and what we want to bring to the world. So I'm always looking for those kind of high, cranked up, high energy, joyful songs because they just bring a lot to the table. Then, one last one, which is the Taylor Swift one, which is Shake It Off. So the feeling, resoluteness of not letting anyone tell you can't, right? Of really being able to kind of step into your own brilliance and not going with the haters or the naysayers. And I think that's
or even yourself sometimes.
Or even yourself, or even your own little voice in your head.
Yeah.
So for me, when I think of innovation, it is that resilience, that joyfulness, that courage, that trust that you are going to prevail, and also that recognition that we're all in it together.
Oh, fun. That's a fun playlist. I love that. Well, thank you so much for playing along. Jennifer, I have learned so much from you, so much from your book, so much from our discussion today, but where can people go to learn more from you?
Obviously, my website, which is jenniferkenny.com, but just pay attention to that because we will be coming out with more fun and interesting ways for you to engage with the knowledge that hopefully we're providing.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here, Jennifer. I really enjoyed our time.
Yeah, delightful and super questions. I'm really thrilled to talk to you. Thank you very much, Matt.
I hope you enjoyed my discussion with Jennifer Kenny. You can learn more from her at jenniferkenny.com. From keynotes to workshops, you'll find ways that Jennifer can work with you and your team to help them fuel more innovation. And be sure and grab your copy of Jennifer's book, The Innovation Mindset. It's going to help you learn how to help your team put the right practices in place to ensure that innovation becomes the norm. And if you're enjoying the Simple Brand podcast, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. It's going to make it so much simpler for you to get future episodes like the next one featuring the return of Tamsin Webster. Tamsin was on the Simple Brand podcast in episode 75, where we discussed her book, Find Your Red Thread. This time, we'll discuss lessons from her latest book, Say What They Can't Unhear, The 9 Principles of Lasting Change. If you're ever looking to persuade people to buy into change, whether it's your customers or even the people you lead, then this episode's for you. So go ahead and subscribe. You'll automatically get Tamsin's episode as soon as it's live. Until then, keep it simple.